Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Website Retool Challenge. Today, we are going to be talking with the wonderful Heather Terwilliger. We were just talking about names, so now I'm like all tongue-tied. Who is a wonderful graphic designer. And today we are going to be talking about all things graphic design and how that can be really beneficial for a therapist or coach. So Heather, welcome. It's good to see you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I'm really excited. Of course, I've worked with you and Amanda both, so it's really exciting to be a part of a joint venture with you guys.
Yeah.
My name's Heather Terwilliger. I run Heather Terwilliger Graphic Design. We're kind of in the middle of a rebrand. So yeah, that's about it. I've been doing graphic design for 3 years now. I'm really comfortable in this space and I enjoy being creative on a daily basis, and I'm excited to help people grow.
Awesome. Well, this is perfect because we have lots of design and branding questions for you. So we're going to take it back to the beginning. We'll start with just laying a little bit of the foundation. So how do you define brand? Like, what is a brand according to you?
So I hear a lot from people, especially people who are just starting their business or their practice or getting their stuff off the ground. When people come for branding, they generally think, I'm just going to get a logo and some colors and fonts, and that'll be the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
But really, your brand goes so much deeper than that, and it's all about your business as a whole. So when you're thinking about your business and your practice and on your values, that really comes through in your brand. So you want to think about your core values and what your business stands for, and then also your messaging and how you're getting that message out to your target audience. So those are the things that are aside from the visuals, which is the fun stuff, right? That's like putting the polish on everything, is getting to pick out your colors and your fonts and making your logo all pretty for your brand.
Yeah, I love that. And we're going to kind of dive into that a little bit more since it's super interesting. And I think it's like the fun part that we think
Yes.
about for our website or our marketing materials, right? Is that kind of ability to be creative with colors and visuals. So I know Amanda and I talk a lot with people about niching and getting specific about what you do and kind of specializing. So is that something that you recommend people do before they start branding, or can it be done sort of in parallel?
I think when you're starting your branding, that niching is hand in hand. So when you're discovering your core values and your messaging, you're thinking about the people that you want to reach with your message, and that sort of helps you define that niche and helps you niche down.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're having trouble niching down, I know it's a hard thing when you're starting out. You just want to cast that net as wide as you can and reach anybody and everybody. But when you're really thinking about your brand and you take a step back and think about who you want to reach, that will help you decide, your niching, when you niche down, who you're targeting, how that messaging is getting to them, if your tone and the words that you use, that all falls into your brand as a whole. And then the visuals kind of complement that. So if you're, targeting females, you can go towards more feminine colors and vice versa. So they all play off each other and they all really complement each other very well.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have any thoughts on why branding is particularly important for therapists and coaches?
I think branding is important for everybody.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
But yes, 100%. I mean, your brand really is like the thumbprint of your business. It helps set you apart from the rest. So when you have your brand and you've developed it and you've spent some time really thinking about it, it helps you set yourself apart from other practices, from other coaches. It helps you look professional. So instead of having something that's just thrown together or just picking out things you like in the moment, if you have a roadmap to follow, then your content instantly appears more polished and put together and effective, like it's on purpose.
Yeah.
So that's just some of the things that really are why branding is important and why it'll help your business grow, because you're recognizable. Really, that's a lot of it, is that if somebody sees your stuff out in the world, they're going to know it's from you because it has your thumbprint on it.
Absolutely. And I think like that's such a great answer. One of the things that I was surprised by is that it actually saves you time,
Oh,
because
100%.
you're not like trying to find a different picture or pick out new colors every time you post something or update something on your website, or you're like, what color goes with this, or what should I do here? What's the vibe, or what's the font, or what's, the
Yeah.
energy I want. You've already thought about all of that. So you have a structure to just pull from. So it becomes easier to create, I think, within that structure.
Yeah, definitely. It takes a lot of the time out, especially if you take that time in the beginning when you got your colors and fonts and everything. If you get templates set up,
Mm-hmm.
um, then it really is no time at all. You just go in and change out a few things and you're good to go. And you automatically know it's going to match your brand. It's going to be, you know, in line with everything else that you've produced.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is so important, as you said, to kind of establish yourself as
Mhm.
a professional, as really an
Yeah.
expert in this space that stands out, and has this cohesive structure to what you're doing. And
Especially when you think about businesses, if you look at businesses that you think are like the top echelon of businesses, and what makes them, stand out from everyone else, a lot of the times it is that everything is so cohesive and on brand. I know that's a little bit of like
mhm,
it's like a catchphrase these days, is it on brand? But really, when you do follow that and you are on brand, it just adds to that level of like up levels your business, definitely.
yeah, absolutely. And maybe we can take a step into talking about graphic design services just generally, since many of
Okay.
our therapists and coaches may not be super familiar with, some maybe, right? But what's like all encompassed when we say graphic design services or a graphic designer? Like, what is it that you guys do?
Well, it's a very broad field. So graphic design encompasses everything from like illustration all the way down to creating like graphic designs creating like social media graphics and stuff like that. For the business world, though, I would say, or your coaching practice, then a lot of that is going to be like things like logos, business cards, different PDFs or workbooks, ebooks. It can even venture into like web design. But mostly what I focus on, at least for my business, is I do a lot of brand design. So helping businesses and coaches develop their brand, creating like brand boards, which is something that is pretty much like a cheat sheet on what your brand is, like your logo, your colors, your fonts, etc. And then, just PDFs, lead magnets, things that you're going to put on your website for your target audience, different graphics for social media. Like some people like to put out quotes or different images, infographics, things like that.
Yeah, that's great. And so, since we're talking about the kind of website retool challenge too,
Mm-hmm.
how would a graphic designer help support a website kind of upgrade, or what would go on a website for someone?
Well, I definitely think it all kind of boils down to developing your brand core. So that kind of that brand board that's got your colors and fonts and everything, that can help you decide when you're building your website what you want to be on it. So if you're mapping out, for instance, your like font hierarchy and you have your headers and your body font and everything, going back to that brand board is going to help you um, create a website that is on brand and cohesive with your message and everything that you're putting out there.
Mm-hmm.
A graphic designer will also be able to help you with choosing different images and different just graphic elements that can go on your website that align with your branding. So, for example, if you're, let's say you have a very earthy kind of vibe for your business, and those are the kind of images that you want to have on your website, a graphic designer can help you source images to use or create something completely original that really will speak to your audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point, because I think, when we're kind of like DIYing it, we can get lost in all of these points, right? Where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, what fonts am I using? What colors am I using? What pictures am I using? And like each of those steps can really hold us up because there's so many choices.
Oh,
So
definitely.
like it feels like the brand and the graphic designer work can really help you kind of narrow in on that.
Mm-hmm. And it becomes really easy if you have the elements, the graphic elements, then you can just pop them in where you need them, and you can focus on working on the copy and the language that you're using to convey your message, which is really the important part. The graphics help
Mm-hmm.
amplify that message, but your message is the most important thing of all.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes sense for sure. Um, so maybe we can talk a little bit about colors, because I get really excited about this and I like it.
Yes.
It's like fun, the fun part of this, right?
Yeah.
Um, so is there a point at which there's like too many colors? Is there like a sweet spot of colors that people kind of aim for? Um, just to help people kind of start to think about what this might look like.
I recommend having 5 to 6 colors max.
Yeah.
You can boil it down even shorter and just do 3 or 4. I generally find 5 or 6 colors allows you to have, you want a dark color, doesn't have to be black, but around, just a darker kind of tone. You want a very light color, again, doesn't have to be white, but needs to be, a lighter color. And then you want to have a couple accent colors that you can use for call to actions or just to kind of help make your website pop. And you
Yeah.
can also include things like textures in there. Like I have some clients who like to use like gold foil texture or like a marble texture, and that can be a part of your branding. But as far as colors go, I would not go any more than 6.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like it makes a lot of sense. And we're even talking a little bit about like 4, like picking 4
Yeah,
to keep it simple and then expanding, right? As you get a little
definitely.
bit more into this space, but not getting too lost in those choices when you're setting up things, on your own or taking this kind of first crack at getting things set up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that is such great advice, because we can get lost in having like 10 different colors and patterns and all kinds of different
Oh
stuff.
yeah, and you see something on somebody that somebody else is doing, and you're like, "Oh, that looks really nice.
Yes,
I want to do that too." So
totally.
narrowing it down really helps to, keep it all focused and tight.
Absolutely. And are there any colors, this might be a weird question, but are there any colors that you would say to like stay away from that wouldn't fit, or is it all just really dependent on the
Mm.
person?
I think it really is dependent on the brand and the kind of emotions that you want to evoke. Like there's a ton of research out there about color psychology and how that plays into marketing and branding. I highly recommend if you're building your brand to look at those. But I think as far as colors to stay away from, I've seen orange not perform particularly well.
Mhm.
But again, it depends on you. It depends. There's so much more that goes into it. It could just be that brand didn't have the right message or reaching the right audience or what have you. Um, so it really just depends on where
Mhm.
you're at and what you're trying to do with your business.
Yeah. And when you say didn't perform well, you mean like people didn't like it or didn't resonate with it, or what do
Yeah,
you mean
it
by that?
seemed just with that, again, with that particular
Yeah.
example, like their target audience wasn't responding to their
Got
orange
it.
branding, and that
Got
was
it.
like the majority of their color palette was orange. So
I see. So really also when you're thinking about your colors, it's not only what you like, but what's going to
oh
speak to your ideal client.
yes, so when I'm working with a client and we're developing that part of that piece of the puzzle, it all kind of comes in stages, right? When you're developing your brand, the first thing we do is develop, is dive into your target market and who you're trying to reach and the niche of your business, and then we kind of branch out into everything else. And I like to have clients create a Pinterest board that's just for their brand, and then they go through and put images that that have like the feeling that their brand evokes in that Pinterest board. And from there, a color palette really emerges on its own. Like you can go through and see what the common colors are. And, but when you're doing that, you also, it's not just about what you like, it's about what the people who are going to be coming to you also will enjoy.
Mm-hmm. And
if that makes sense.
yeah, I think it makes total sense. And it's really interesting to think about, like, and how do you know if those colors like speak to your audience?
Well, I think, I mean, honestly, you can test it out.
Mm-hmm.
You can, if you're debating between a few different color palettes, you could theoretically create graphics with those two palettes and see which one performs better.
Mm-hmm.
That would require like split testing, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how in depth you want to go on that, but I mean, you can see that, but generally it's going to take time. So you're going to, have your color palette, and a decent graphic designer is going to be able to tell you like these colors are not going to speak to your target audience. If
Mm-hmm.
you still want to go with it, we can try it, but it's a gamble.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time when you're working with a graphic designer to develop your brand colors, you're going to be talking about your audience first, and that's going to help influence what colors your designer chooses.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. So it's very thoughtful. Like there's a lot of
Definitely,
very
yeah.
intentional, thoughtful stages.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the last things I want to ask you about, since I know a lot of people talk about this, is a logo. And just your thoughts on this. Like, how important is it to have a logo? How important is it that it's like location specific versus your business name specific? Like, can you just kind of talk a little bit about your ideas on a logo?
So you mean like the logo itself or like your business name?
The logo itself, the kind of
Okay.
visual image of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think if you're, well, let's see. I think having a logo is important, but I also don't think a logo has to be super involved. So if that's the thing holding you back from starting something or building something, don't let it stop you. Because some of the best logos I've seen, especially lately, are just text-based,
Mm-hmm.
simple logos. So you may have like a thought that you want to have a logo that looks very elaborate, but in reality, especially with what you're going to be using your logo for, so you got to think about, you're going to be putting your logo on business cards, you're going to be putting it on your website, you're going to be putting it on your social media. So you want it to be clear in all of those aspects. So a lot of times having a really elaborate frilly kind of logo, which has been really popular in past years, is gonna look just kind of distorted when it's scaled down. So
Yeah.
if that's the thing that's stopping you, just don't let it stop you. And your logo can change anytime. If you have your business name or your practice down, that's what's important. You can always rebrand later. You can always introduce a new logo. So it is important. It's important to have one because it does help, again, just like with the rest of your branding, keep everything cohesive and consistent, but it shouldn't be the thing that stops you from progressing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it makes sense. I think we sometimes only think about a logo as something
Yeah,
that goes on your website, right? But it goes in
right.
all of those places that you just mentioned. So having it be able to be scaled down and scaled up, and it's still clear and crisp and looks the way you want and kind of renders in that way you want it to, I think we sometimes forget about. So it's great to have that reminder for sure.
And there are like for my clients, a lot of the times we'll produce a main logo and then an alternate logo. So sometimes the main logo will be like vertical or like a square shape, and then their alternate logo will be more horizontal so that it'll fit in more places, like
Mm-hmm.
your website, which you don't think about when you're developing it
Mm-hmm.
until you're trying to put it in there, and then it's humongous or super tiny. So that's always an option too. If you're concerned, you can always talk to your graphic designer about making it in different sizes and different layouts so that it'll fit more places.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate that. It's great advice. So I want to kind of be respectful of your time and everyone's time. Is there anything that I have not asked you about that you want to share with our folks?
I don't think so. I think the biggest thing is to just work with a graphic designer that you feel comfortable with. Definitely have a meeting beforehand just to see if that chemistry is there, because that's a big part of the process. And you want to make sure you're working with somebody who is going to be receptive of feedback and who you feel comfortable giving feedback to.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when you're working with a graphic designer, they're not mind readers. So
What?
don't
Crazy.
so don't be afraid to give feedback, or to explicitly state, this is what I'm hoping for, or I don't like this. A lot of times people, I think, are afraid of like offending their designer.
Mm-hmm.
And we look for that feedback because we want to help make you happy, and we want to make your vision come to life and help your business kind of grow. So we can only do that though if you're okay giving us feedback and telling us how you want to proceed.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great advice for sure. Yes. Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Heather, for being with us today. I'm so excited to have talked with you. And as a reminder, we will be posting this in the Facebook group, and folks will be able to respond and ask questions on that thread where we post it. So you guys will get to interact with Heather. She'll be able to answer some of your questions. So thank you for being here. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. This was a lot of fun. I'm so happy I got to come on.
Good, good. Awesome. All right. Well, we will talk soon.
Okay, thanks.